and changed its action. If the hormone was lipid-based, lipid-based moves through the plasma membrane. Look where it goes. It targets the chromosomes directly. It actually gets to move into the cell, go through the membrane of the nucleus, and change the activity of the chromosome. Chromosomes contain our genes. Genes code for a protein, and I have now altered my product, which is a protein. This is how we're going to have the hormones alter the action of their target cell. If luteinizing hormone got released from the anterior pituitary, makes its way to the testes, it affects the interstitial cells to produce testosterone to help the sperm mature. You see the different ways that it's causing something to change the product, i.e. the protein, which altered the activity of that target cell. Now, this one over here, you guys remember that good old CAMP system where I've got my receptor and it's connected to the G proteins, which is going to cause a series of reactions within the cell? This is another mode of action. Oh, the result is the same. It altered the product that was formed. This is how a lot of our hormones work. The little list right here are the ones that can work by way of my CAMP system. So those receptors that you have, I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I do not need a lot of hormone to be produced. Okay? I only need a few molecules. Mainly because when the hormone reaches its target cell and begins to set off a series of reactions, that series of reactions generates a huge amount of product from that cell. So it may only, this is just a generalization, it may only take one hormone molecule to generate 1,000 of the protein products. So hormones have what we call a cascade effect. You only need a very minute amount of a hormone because the cell, the target cell, will create a ton of the product. So you might only need one molecule of the hormone to reach your end result, the cascade effect. So these hormones, okay, their goal, change the activity of the cell. When we deal with the chemicals in the body, one of the things that has to happen there have to be target cells. Not every cell of the body has a receptor for every hormone. That's not possible, okay? Might be interesting to see, but it's not possible. Cells that do have receptors, but let's say the body might be demanding a huge amount of the product. They can change the number of targets, the receptors on the cell. So if this cell has a receptor for that hormone and it's got a bunch of it on the outside of the cell can actually quickly make more receptors to accept more of the hormone and make more of the product. And it can do the opposite. It can take those receptors and reduce them in number. And the hormone doesn't generate as much of the product. The effects that we get from hormones on the body, they can either be synergistic, permissive, or antagonistic. Synergy means you work together. The two hormones working together create a greater effect than each one alone. Permissive, one hormone will enhance the hormone that will come next, such as ones that happen with our sex hormones. Antagonistic, we've got them opposing each other. One of the things that we can actually have tested is our metabolism. And all of these chemicals have a rate of clearance. They have what's called a half-life, meaning how long does it take to clear out half of the chemical from the body. So let's say if it takes 2 hours to use one of the hormones to their half amount, well, the next half, in other words, half of the half, would take 4 hours. So everything has a metabolic rate of clearance. The faster the clearance, the shorter the half-life, and the quicker it will leave the body. Or if it stays in there a long time, the longer it will affect the body. One of the things that happens with this system, I've mentioned several times today, under times of extreme stress. When I say a time of extreme stress, for example, a little over 7 years ago, I don't know if I told y'all, I lost my son very tragically. And that was a time of extreme stress for me. And I look back on it now, and I see every bit of this taking place. When there's a time of extreme stress, the body reverts to a lot of these activities that we've talked about today. Because we have what's called stress responses. And then, what has the body got to do to adapt to it? Stress is any situation that upsets homeostasis. Now, general, like, you know, oh, I'm going to take a test. That's very situational, okay? But if there's a stressor in your life that is with you for an extended amount of time, it becomes chronic. And under times of chronic stress, the body's reaction begins to get mediated by my endocrine and my sympathetic nervous system. This is when the stress is going to begin to kill you. Because the things that are going to happen, stress can be anything physical, like maybe you were like in a car wreck or something like that, because that would be a physical trauma to the body. We can also have emotional, i.e. my son, okay? We respond with the stress response. Sometimes, you know, that response, I guess depending on people's ability to handle it, okay? And then we have our general adaptation syndrome, labeled gas, go figure. But here's what's going to happen. In a normal, like in just a small stressor, it doesn't get this difficult. Remember, extreme chronic stress, okay? First thing, alarm reaction. Whatever it was that happened is very overwhelming. It's like you're in shock, basically. Therefore, norepi from the sympathetic, epi from the adrenal medulla, it gets released. We begin for fight or flight. Now remember, this preparation for fight or flight uses alternative fuels to begin with. But once those are used up, it is going to have to start doing something to get glucose. This is when it begins to become hard, detrimental to the body. All right? Because it's now trying to serve the brain, the organs, as well as the muscles. Chronic stress. Do you ever come down from the sympathetic response?
No.
No. Okay? Something's going to have to break the cycle. Because if it's a chronic stressor, you're pretty much amped up all the time. Okay? Then, as we begin to run out of the fuels to keep the body in this ramped up state, we get to resistance. Reserves are exhausted, okay? We may be replenishing them in some way, but chances are, if you're under chronic stress, you're not eating like you should, all right? Definitely not getting nutrients in a proper amount, proper time, whatever the case might be. It begins to reach the stage of resistance. This one dominated by cortisol. Not the best hormone to get released. Gonna need to be looking to alternative fuels. For example, proteins of the body, which is not good. If we begin to get to that point where it's looking for or pulling from the proteins, if that cycle is not broken, death will ensue. Because you've broken down materials the body can't replace, and you've used up all of the stores that were in your body, there's nothing left. So, usually, health begins to decline. This is the time, usually when the health begins to decline, like maybe chronic high blood pressure has set in, maybe something else has occurred, and the people are like, whoa, I am too stressed out. I need to do something about this. And by that time, you have reached a point where you really need to do that, or, whoo, it's not pretty. Things really do begin to decline fast. We cannot depend on the breakdown of that protein for any length of time.